30 seconds and counting. 25 seconds and counting. We are still go. 20 seconds. Guidance alert. The guidance system now going internal. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of The Angry Astronaut. Good evening to my viewers in Europe and in Africa. Good morning to my viewers on the West Coast. Good very early morning to my viewers in the Pacific Rim. Once again, welcome. We are going to be covering some more stuff about SpaceX today, but before we get into that, let's go ahead and have everybody start checking in. We've got over 100 people watching right now. I'll tell you, the viewership on my live streams has gone up over the last couple of months, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we picked up a lot of new viewers lately. So once again, welcome to a lot of the new folks that have come on, especially like a lot of the UFO enthusiasts. I think a lot of those folks have come on recently. Four Marks UK, hello. Florida, hello. And by the way, we have an improvement in broadcasting as well. I want to express my thanks to my producer in Yorkshire. Hello, Hong Kong. Hello, Barking. Hello, Hamburg. Hello, Mannheim on Ruhr. And Darby and Swansea and Saskatchewan. Hello. And Austin, Texas and Scotland and Indianapolis and Clifton and also Palmer, Alaska. And of course, our producer in Yorkshire. And then we have the Netherlands as well as Mission, Texas, and Merritt Island, Florida. Hello, and thank you very much for checking in. We have somebody from Edinburgh checking in as well. A lot of viewers in Scotland. Very happy to see that. Of course, it's not very surprising. I cover a lot of what's the space flight issues that are going on in Scotland. We also have Grants Pass, Oregon. We also have Maui. Hello, Maui. I hope things are going well out there, Dexter. Also, we have Denmark. Thank you very much, Michael, for tuning in. Colorado. I'll be back in Colorado here soon, west of Antarctica. The Lone Star State. Well, people watching from all over the world as usual. Very, very happy to have you guys tuning in. Thank you so much indeed. So, in terms of the topic, really quick, I want to also catch you up on what's going on with me at the moment. I am strongly considering attending the Atlas V launch that's going to be taking place on Tuesday. This was kind of a last second consideration on my part. And the reason is it's a pretty upgunned Atlas V. It's a national security launch. And so therefore they have to put a lot of solid rocket boosters onto that thing in order to deliver the payload directly into geosynchronous orbit, which is the destination for that payload. And as a result, it's about 50% more powerful than a Falcon 9. But also on top of that, the observation gantry that I'm looking to go to is only 2.9 kilometers away from the pad. 2.9 kilometers, or roughly 1/3 the distance, or a little less than that, of 1/3 the distance that I usually get to watch a Starship launch from. So it is crazy close, and an interestingly powerful rocket, more powerful than most rockets that take off from the Cape. The only thing that's discouraging me, well, there's two factors. Number one, I still have stuff to do here in order to get myself out of this house in time. But number two, there is a tropical depression, as a number of you folks may be aware of, that's heading up to Florida at this moment that could theoretically interfere with the launch, although all the indicators seem to suggest that it's going to be in the Gulf at the time that the launch takes place and shouldn't interfere at all. But nevertheless, I still some open questions as to that. I'm going to keep you guys informed. I'll be contacting NASA again tomorrow to get an update on the status of the launch. But I may very well be going and very well be bringing you one of the last Atlas V launches that's ever going to be taking place, and bringing it to you up close and personal on Tuesday if everything goes the way I would really like it to happen. Once again, it is a national security launch. Once again, I forget I should know what the title is, but unfortunately, I don't have it right in front of me. Silent Barker, thank you very much, producer. The Silent Barker launch. It's an NROL launch, and as I say, it's one of these geosynchronous launches that requires a considerable amount of power, and so therefore you need those 5 SRBs strapped on to the Atlas V in order to give it the necessary thrust. Graham, 50 quid. My God, thank you so much for your generosity. Just blew my mind there. Wow. Thank you so much. Once again, that's very helpful to me, especially this month. The 2 months previous to this have been fantastic. This month, not that great. But nevertheless, that is a huge help. Thank you so much for that. And it'll help me continue to bring you content from all over the world, as I intend to do here very shortly. So anyway, I'll keep you guys up to date on that. And then secondly, I want to remind everybody that in Pittsburgh on the 3rd, once again, from 2 to 5 p.m., at the Moonshot Museum in Pittsburgh, which is attached to the Astrobotic facility. That's where my next tour date is. And in addition to my usual lecture, you are also going to get to see the Peregrine and the Griffin landers. Both of those are on display right now as they prepare for their journey to the moon. Okay, thank you so much for the tenor. Really do appreciate that. Go Atlas. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting launch, and especially as close as I'm going to be. I didn't even know they had observation gantries that close, so I'm looking forward to that. So in any event, if you are in the Pittsburgh area or somewhere in that region, this may be the best event that I have for this tour, simply because of Peregrine and Griffin as being part of it. It's $15, not $10, because I also need to cover the admission cost to the museum as part of it. But it's going to be a fantastic afternoon of spaceflight if you're into that. Once again, all the details are in the description if you'd like to attend that. Okay. Getting on to SpaceX. That took us a while, but nevertheless, wanted to make sure you knew about all that stuff. SpaceX has had a complicated relationship with the government as of late. On the FAA side, a lot of people had, in the past expressed frustration with the FAA, thinking that, they're just holding things up and asking for too many details, having this long list of corrective actions that SpaceX needed to take when they were initially granting the PEA, etc. But I'm here to tell you that the FAA has been uncharacteristically cooperative with SpaceX up to this point. Very, very cooperative, because really, given the fact that SpaceX was going to be launching a rocket several times more powerful than the Falcon Heavies that they were originally supposed to be launching to from Boca Chica, that in theory should have required a full-fledged environmental study. If the FAA was doing their job to the letter, as exactly the way they're supposed to do it, really a full environmental study should have been carried out before they permitted a launch, rather than just the PEA. But they permitted it. And not only that, they've also been very cooperative in terms of issuing those licenses. For example, the license that got issued for the launch on the 20th of April, that particular license was only green lighted a few days prior to launch. We're talking about a massive rocket with a very large exclusion zone, something that will definitely interdict air traffic around it. And, the FAA granted that go-ahead only a few days prior to the 20th of April. That is something the FAA generally doesn't do. They want to give a little bit more advance notice to people. So the fact that they allowed that to happen is once again an indicator that the FAA and SpaceX have a really good relationship. And of course, what we may see here soon, keep in mind, as we all know, SpaceX only just recently submitted the mishap report that they were supposed to submit to the FAA just a few days ago. And if the FAA greenlights a launch by the first or second week of September, that is a crazy fast turnaround, especially given all the things that happened on the 20th of April and also all of the modifications that have been made to Starship. And yet, I think that, I've had my opinions have gone back and forth on this, but I think that it looks fairly optimistic that the FAA, barring any weird, occurrences, the FAA may greenlight a launch by mid-September, which once again would be an insanely fast turnaround in the aftermath of just a mishap report being submitted. Boy, John, thank you so much for the 5 Angry Astronaut memberships. You get a membership, you get a membership, you get a membership. Once again, on the Discord server, that you get access to it as a result of this membership, and you get access to unique content, early content, and also we have hundreds of members now on that Discord server, many of whom are heavily engaged in the spaceflight community. So if that's something you're interested in being a part of, okay, I'm waiting. The community tab should have a link for all the new members, just so you know. And also, if you want to join through Patreon, that's another way to get easy access to the Discord. And you can do that very inexpensively. If you do it through Patreon, it's only $3, at least at the lowest level of membership. So in any event, okay. So once again, thanks so much, John, for making that happen. Really appreciate it. So on the other side of the equation, though, let's take the FAA out of the equation. There are a lot of complications taking place right now in regards to the rest of the government. For example, we'll talk about the Fish and Wildlife Service right now. A number of representatives from the Fish and Wildlife Service have now spoken to the press about what happened on the 20th, and a lot of them are frankly horrified or pissed off. And the thing that bothered them the most was watching all of those massive chunks of concrete plunging into the surf in the Gulf of Mexico as the launch was taking place. All of us got to see that, and if you could see, some of them were like geysers of water coming out from some of that concrete hitting the ocean. That's something that really annoyed a lot of the Fish and Wildlife people. In addition to that, they were not provided access to the site immediately after it happened. They didn't get a chance to see what sort of impact that had on the local environment. And there is scuttlebutt at the Fish and Wildlife Service that they were intentionally barred access to that until SpaceX had an opportunity to clean up all the animal carcasses. Once again, I think that is vicious rumor and not necessarily the truth, but nevertheless, that's the kind of scuttlebutt that's happening right now. So I watched the head of the FAA could not answer basic questions. Well, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. The people who head up these departments, sometimes they are not very well informed as to the minutia of what's going on. Sometimes the head of the FAA has a lot on his plate, and he may not be paying a whole lot of attention to the space launch part of his responsibilities. Not that he should be doing that, but nevertheless, that can happen in governmental agencies. So the Fish and Wildlife Service may have a bone to pick with SpaceX. They may be obstructionist with this next launch, hard to say. But the department of the government that's really going to be a pain in the ass here in the near future is now the DOJ. And this came as a surprise to a lot of people, as the DOJ has now filed charges against SpaceX, claiming that they've been violating federal labor laws. And, it was always something that confused me a little bit about the fact that SpaceX really couldn't hire non-Americans for any kind of job, which I found to be a little curious. Now, I think that they may hire contractors outside of SpaceX, whose citizenship may be, a little bit more questionable. Some welders, that sort of thing, perhaps. But I found it a little curious, and the reason that I did is because we have companies like Rocket Lab who have been launching national security payloads for the military for quite some time now. And that is, once again, for the longest time, until Rocket Lab opened up their Rocket Lab America division, most of the employees who were handling these launches, these national security launches, were New Zealanders. They had to be. There was no way around it, because New Zealanders were the ones who were familiar with the technology. And I did a lot of research, by the way, over the last couple of days about Rocket Lab and how they do things. And the way they're able to carry all of this out is they are officially headquartered in the United States, but they have a subdivision in New Zealand. And so that's how they can allow access of New Zealand employees and New Zealand staff to to national security missions with the United States. You essentially have to have this subdivision in a different country, which SpaceX does not have. But that isn't necessarily what the DOJ is all pissed off about. What they're more annoyed about is the fact that apparently those who are granted refugee status and those who are granted asylee status, in other words, asylum seekers, those who achieve that official status with the government are therefore they're eligible for just about any type of job in the U.S., according to them, anyway. But again, go ahead. Right. A United States person, as my producer just told me. In other words, anybody who has the right to live here. And so asylees and refugees are afforded the same rights, apparently, at least according to the Department of Justice, that anybody who has a green card is afforded, because they've been vetted by the same security requirements that anybody who has a green card has been vetted through. As a matter of fact, they've probably been vetted even more thoroughly, at least, again, according to the DOJ. I'm not saying this is true. I'm just saying this is what they are claiming. That they've been vetted even more thoroughly, because people trying to achieve refugee status or asylee status are oftentimes coming from countries that are countries of concern for the United States security wise. And so they have to go through very extensive security vetting before they can get that status. And once they get that status, they should be allowed to apply for any sort of job. Now, once again, those who have been granted asylee status or official refugee status are here legally. There are tons and tons of people who are seeking refugee status or who are seeking asylee status or who are here illegally. The vast majority of those people are. I don't want to get us confused between those two. The vast majority of the people here who are seeking refugee status are here illegally and have not been through any sort of security vetting, and so therefore are not eligible for any of these kinds of jobs. The idea is anybody who has been through this process and has been granted this status has been through extensive security screening, or so the DOJ claims. Alan, thank you so much for the $5. Really do appreciate that. Does Boca Chica have a long-term launch future? I don't know. I go back and forth on it all the time. I think it's very problematic, to be honest. I think there's lots and lots of barriers that they have to deal with for them to be able to launch from there. It's very, very inconvenient. Andrew, thank you so much for the $20 Canadian. Really appreciate your generosity. Did Marina just make a comment there? Thought I saw her. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Marina, I'm glad to see that you're okay. I see that you're talking to the producer right now on chat. Marina, by the way, is our resident Ukrainian who has been staying in contact with me for quite some time. Before the war started, she was a supporter of this channel. Lovely lady. And, has been fighting through a lot of adversity over the last couple of years as a result, obviously, of what's been going on in Ukraine. So we wish her all the best, and I just stay safe, Marina. That's all I can say, and we definitely support you. So in any event, so this is what the DOJ claims, and because they're doing this, here's the real kicker. Here's the real problem behind what the DOJ has done at this point. They have issued an open invitation to anybody with refugee status and anybody with asylee status who has applied to SpaceX and been turned down for a job. They are seeking lost wages for those people. Holy shit. You want to talk about the craziest and biggest class action lawsuit that you can think of? All of these people that may have applied for jobs with SpaceX in the past, they're going to be treated as if they should have gotten those jobs and just didn't. And the potential lost wages from all those people, not only that, but all the federal fines that SpaceX could theoretically be hit with, that is beyond nasty. And I'm telling you, I'm very much against that. I think that all of this should have been handled in the background. All of this, if there was an issue here, if this was something that SpaceX should not have been doing, the DOJ could have handled this through back channels and handled all of this in a more surreptitious fashion, for the benefit of the people who maybe should have had a better opportunity for a job but didn't get it. Assuming that they do have a legitimate gripe, all of this could have been done behind the scenes and a lot less obviously. Now it has opened up a massive can of worms for a huge class action lawsuit against SpaceX that honestly is going to be a colossal pain in the ass for quite some time. And not only that, depending on what the results of this are, if the DOJ is able to prove that SpaceX violated federal labor law for years, I don't know if they can do that or not. For just to let you know, I hope not. I hope they can't prove that. But if they can, then that puts SpaceX in a serious world of hurt when it comes to getting federal contracts in the future. And so if we're talking about the Department of Justice here, man, they seem to be really out for Elon right now, really out for his blood, and I'm not sure why. Kai Nguyen, thank you so much. I'm concerned as Elon increasingly gets unstable mentally, Twitter politics, chance of losing connection with the government is high as retaliation or more pressure from Congress. Yeah, Kai, honestly, I wish that Elon would kind of dial down the politics as well, and everything else that he's up to, because, I just liked him more when he was focused on SpaceX and Mars, especially when he was really focused on Mars. I mean, that was a lot of money that he put into buying Twitter that could have gone into getting us to Mars. So yeah, I find that to be somewhat disappointing. But at the same time, is that justification for the DOJ to be after his head? No, absolutely not. Now, of course, I'm going to withhold total judgment on this until the case has had, a chance to run through the courts. But nevertheless, yeah, it's I'm not a fan of what's going on, that's for sure. I think that this could have been handled a lot more discreetly and still have gotten the same results. If there were people who were, who had been granted asylum, granted refugee status, that should have had a chance to get a job, they still could have gotten what they wanted theoretically without this becoming such a public issue. $5 from Andre. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. News from the JWST has gone silent. Closer to finding techno signatures, we already found something. Andre, I don't I haven't heard anything on JWST in terms of its going silent. As far as techno-signatures are concerned, I believe that we have received those sorts of things already. I just watched another documentary on the WOW signal. Most of the people involved in that particular incident back in 1977 believe that we received a signal from another civilization. Some, not necessarily a transmission, some sort of artificial radio burst of some kind from another civilization. It was at the right frequency. It was incredibly powerful. It was narrow band. It was all of the things that we would expect from an extraterrestrial civilization. The one thing it didn't do is repeat. But once again, how the hell is another civilization supposed to know that they need to send us a repeating signal? Or, or were they even sending anything to us in particular? Or was it just some sort of radar beam focused on our system to see what was here? Who knows? But nevertheless, all of the characteristics of that signal. And by the way, that's not the only one. There have been others that we have detected since then that bear a lot of similarity to the WOW signal. Again, not natural, narrow band signal, very powerful. So yeah, I think in many ways we have received techno signatures already. Just the thing of it is we are so very conservative when it comes to all of this that nobody's really willing to admit it until we get something just a little bit better. And by a little bit better, hopefully, we'll get a repeating signal sometime in the future. And we're doing a lot more to look for these things than we've done in the past. My God, nearly 400 people watching right now. You guys blow my mind. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. So once again, so what is the government's position on SpaceX? It's hard to say, because we have the FAA, and then we have NASA, obviously, looking like they're very supportive of SpaceX. NASA has granted not only Artemis 3, but also Artemis 4 to SpaceX and Starship. And also the military is very interested in Starship and the potential behind it. The government has paid, SpaceX billions and billions of dollars over the years for providing an incredibly useful service to the government. I mean, if we didn't have SpaceX, the ISS would now belong to Russia. Plain and simple. Either we would need to back off of our support of Ukraine, or we would need to surrender the ISS to the Russians, because we would have no other way of getting up there. That alone is a very important reason as to why the government should be supporting SpaceX. And as I say, the future of Artemis depends so much on SpaceX. There are so many things that the government is up to right now that depends on SpaceX. And if we don't have SpaceX's support, if Elon pulls that support, or if the government, does everything they can to take SpaceX apart, all that is it's ceding the moon and all of its resources to China. Why would we want to do that? So I just think that the consequences of going after SpaceX like this are far, far worse than whatever they may have done wrong. And once again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not an immigration attorney. All right. I really don't know what the official status of asylees or refugees actually are. The ones who have gone through the proper process, the ones who have been granted this status by the government, I have no idea what their real status is or what kind of jobs they can apply for. All I know is what I've read on the Department of Justice's website. Okay. According to my producer, and just got this information, very interesting, Tori Bruno has posted apparently that ULA hires people who have achieved legitimate refugee or asylee status in the United States. Once again, that's these people have probably gone through the same process that you'd have to go through in order to get a green card in this country. So I'm not saying they shouldn't be able to get a job. absolutely, if that's within their legal right. So, but the question is, did it really require this kind of nasty public response? Did the DOJ really have to go after SpaceX in this public aggressive fashion that would encourage a massive class action lawsuit? In my opinion, no. I think it could have been handled a lot better and in a manner that still would have taken care of the civil rights of these people. If indeed these rights have been violated, then I think they deserved, to get what they, an equal opportunity if that's what they deserve under the law. But it didn't have to be such a public thing that was going to encourage this massive shitstorm that is likely to be happening here in the near future. On the other side of the equation, of course, as we all know, NASA and the FAA seems to be very supportive indeed, of SpaceX. In the DM. Okay, I have a link to the Tory Bruno tweet, and I think I'm going to go ahead once I'm done here. Once I've got that wrapped up, I'm going to put it in the description so you guys get a chance to see it. Very interesting to see the difference in hiring policies, if that at least apparently exists between ULA and SpaceX. Once again, if the DOJ has a point, that's fine. I think these people should have gotten a legitimate chance. But at the same time, I don't see why we had to make this massive public hissy fit over the whole situation and to put SpaceX into a corner like this. I think that was inappropriate. Nothing that can be done about it now. The cat's out of the bag. In any event, we'll go ahead and wrap up at this point. Don't forget about the Pittsburgh event on the 3rd, and also stay tuned for September 3rd, that is, and also stay tuned for more information as to whether or not I'm going to be able to cover this Atlas V launch on Tuesday, something I really want to do. Up close and personal stuff, guys. We're talking about 3 kilometers away from the pad, 3 times as close as people usually are to the Starship launches. So it should be quite a show. I hope I get a chance to bring it to you. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, stay angry about space.